sell in 2025 and run for the damn hills, man. Here's the reasons why 2025, assuming we don't get some massive Great Depression happening tomorrow, as some people are calling for all the time and have been calling for years and missing the massive rally in the market anyway. Here are the reasons why 2025 is the year to get the heck out of markets and run away before the proverbial shit hits the fan, guys. So let's get straight into this. And first is, of course, the global liquidity cycle. As you can see, this is currently on an uptrend. But if you look back at previous trends, the likelihood is that we're probably going to top for this locally somewhere in 2025, have a revision downwards in 2026, grind up for the next big top in 2029 or something like that, as they tend to move in these 4-year cycles approximately. So the global liquidity cycle is trending upwards. Central banks are cutting interest rates. M2 money supply is up. That's all moving the global liquidity index up. Okay. So when this starts topping out, looking like a big old fat tower, right, or a mountain peak, then it's probably time to get the heck out of markets before 2026 comes and we start revising the global liquidity index back down, because that's when the shit hits the fan. That's the trouble time. The next is the China 4-year credit cycle. So you can just see on this chart, look back, 2009, 2013, 2014, 2021. Now, if we're talking Bitcoin specific context here, 2013, 2017, 2021 were all market cycle peak tops. 2009 for global markets more broadly was not a super fantastic year. We were starting to recover out of the 2008 slump, but it wasn't like, mega bull market vibes, right? That's because of the global financial crisis. And of course, if we, again, get some kind of massive US recession happening in the near future because something breaks in the system, for example, then all bets are off, right? About 2025 being a great year to sell. Maybe now is the best time to sell this very second before it all goes to hell in a handbasket. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we have a great rally ahead of us in the market cycle, still potentially seeing a top in like maybe as early as Q1, something like March 2025. That could catch a lot of people off guard because a lot of people are expecting the standard 4-year cycle, which we're going to talk about in a second. But these 4-year credit cycles in China are definitely something worth paying attention to. And the next top probably in 2025 for Chinese credit cycles. And when the Chinese credit cycle tops, markets will go down following that. Okay. Before we get into the real estate cycle, the yield curve, all that fun kind of stuff, a real quick note to let you know about the Wealth Mastery newsletter, best damn newsletter in the cryptocurrency business. Every single week, my team of writers and I, we are sharing with you the latest and the greatest insights on altcoins, airdrops, meme coins, charts, analysis, the news. We got the news, guys. It's a newsletter after all. So check it out. You can join 140,000 plus weekly readers for free. Check it out. Link down below in the description on YouTube or the pinned comment over on X. Our readers love it. I'm sure you will too. So go check it out. Thank you very much. So next up is the 18-year real estate cycle. Now, this is an interesting one. For the 18-year cycle to play out, it actually plays out in 2026. Now, there are some that are going to look at this chart and say, well, maybe there's some rhyming here, but 18 years is too specific, and we're probably already in the downturn depression phase of that 18-year real estate cycle. Maybe it was only a 16-year cycle this time, and real estate moves in these big cycles because it's such a gargantuan asset class, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the 18-year model, it just isn't a perfect fit right now. The market downturn for properties are already here. It's all over. This is not the mid-cycle correction for that. But if the cycle holds true, and that is a big but, right? But if it does hold true, then real estate has one final melt up potentially when interest rates start getting cut. People start aping back into real estate again before the shit really hits the fan in 2026 and property markets correct down once again. I know what you're thinking. Hasn't there already been enough pain in the property markets? Potentially. And potentially we could already be in that depression phase of the real estate cycle. But the 18 years is 2026. So maybe 2025 ends up having a nice bounce. Maybe a dead cat bounce or a bit more. Dead dog bounce, a bit bigger, right? Dead monkey bounce, I don't know. Some kind of bounce in 2025, leading to, of course, the final big collapse for real estate markets in 2026. Multi-year accumulation period, let's say, downtrend. The next is the yield curve. I know you hear a lot about the yield curve. Basically, yield curves on short-term bonds are paying better rates than long-term bonds. The yield curve has been inverted for 2 years, the longest period since the Great Depression, which is leading some people to say, hey, because this yield curve thing, we're basically going to have a new Great Depression, and it's going to be the worst depression, recession, economic event of the century, and it's all going to be over. And that's scary, man. Chances are they'll try and print a bunch of money to make sure that that doesn't happen. They can only print money so long before eventually the US just buckles under the weight of its own money printing. Regardless, the yield curve is currently in the process of uninverting. Now, that doesn't mean that the yield curve uninverts today and then tomorrow there's a recession. It doesn't work like that. These are big things that have delayed effects. So maybe the yield curve has uninverted, but it's going to take 6 months, maybe longer, maybe a bit less before recession finally hits. Enough things are starting to break in the markets that recession hits 6 months from now, for example, or markets top 6 months from now and then start going down. So again, maybe look at Q1 top March, for example, of 2025, markets top, and then we go down to hell in a handbasket. Okay. So this is worth keeping in mind here as well. We also have, of course, very specifically, this is all macro stuff we've been talking about so far. Very specifically for Bitcoin, we have the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. Basically, every 4 years, Bitcoin finds a new cycle peak. Always comes after the Bitcoin halving, anywhere from 12 to 18 months post Bitcoin halving. Now, if this holds true for this cycle, then the absolute latest that we're likely to see that happen is December 2025. Potentially, it could come a lot earlier, though. Historically, if you look back at all the 4-year cycles we had so far, they've all come within about a month of November 28th of the 4th year of 2025, 2021, 2017, 2013, etc. So in that case, latest probably December 2025. But if we have a cycle like 21, but without the second rally, that might lead us to a March 2025 cycle peak. Bitcoin 4-year cycle has been a pretty powerful thing so far, and I know there's a lot of fear in the markets, and this could be derailed again by some massive dysfunction in U.S. markets, leads to a U.S. recession. I keep pointing this out because nobody has a crystal ball. Okay, I don't have a crystal ball. We have models, we have charts, we have ideas to work on, right? But there are always things out that are happening that are beyond our control, and sometimes shit can hit the fan in markets, right? So you have to be careful about that. But assuming that we don't see the Bitcoin 4-year cycle completely derailed, then post Bitcoin halving, usually about 6 months after the Bitcoin halving, this puts us on par for about, on course for about, let's say late September or sometime in October for a big rally to start for Bitcoin. Maybe that's when we finally go back over 72K, start the new rally into the end of the year, the final leg of the market. The Elliott waiver guys are out here saying it's going to be the 5th wave of the market cycle, and that is when the market's going to top for Bitcoin. The bear market will start after that sometime in 2025. We also have the Pi cycle top indicator. Last few cycles been basically perfectly called by the Pi cycle top indicator. 2021, for example, it came within a day or two of the 64K top. Now, it didn't call the 69K top later on that year, but honestly, had you simply sold at 64K and then all your altcoins within the following 2 weeks, you would have outperformed 99% of people in the market. Okay, because a lot of people were held down and held back up to 69K, didn't sell shit. Okay, definitely not something to fade if we get it triggered. So you can't only wait around for that one thing to trigger. But if it does trigger, then it's probably on course to trigger sometime in 2025, especially if we get a rapid expansion into the end of the year. It could again trigger in like February or March or April of 2025. And that would be something not to fade. When it hits, pay attention, get out, run for the hills. Everyone, of course, when that happens, is going to be convincing you, no, look, Bitcoin's $150,000, whatever. Now it's going to go to 500K. Don't sell now. It's going to go 500K. Maybe it does. Maybe you'll be wrong to the upside. But chances are it's not going to go to 500K, and those people will get stuck, and they'll have to ride their bags down to zero, or, whatever they go down to in the bear market. The dollar index, another thing we talk about, this is kind of, again, more macro, but very much related to the price of Bitcoin. So recently, the dollar index has been in a downtrend. It's been struggling to hold on to the 200-week moving average. So basically, the rise of risk assets happens when the dollar loses strength. Now, usually, once the 200-week exponential moving average has been lost for the DXY, you can basically start the clock running, because usually you have, 6 months or something like that before markets peak. Again, we can go back to our Q1 thesis. We can go back to the yield curve and how it being about a 6-month lead sometimes into recessions and all that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of things to consider here. And look, none of this necessarily predicts the future. What happened in the past does not guarantee something's going to happen in the future. Obviously, markets are chaos. Very few make it out in profit. Tops are only obvious in hindsight. The top could come earlier than people expect. It could come even at the end of 2024 and catch everybody off guard, or it could come early 2025 and catch enough people off guard, or it could come late 2025 and be consensus, but still probably catch most people off guard because most people won't sell. Nobody knows when it's going to come. But one thing I don't know for sure, 100%, is that if you do not sell, especially your altcoins, you are going to be screwed super hard when the bear market comes. You won't have any options. You'll have bags that are down 99%, and you'll think, why did I do this? Now, what's selling mean? Do you need to sell all your crypto coins and stocks? Obviously not. But keep in mind that stuff like high-risk altcoins, meme coins, they're going to go down 99%. You can keep your Bitcoin if you're happy to ride 60, 70% downside volatility. Your S&P 500 stuff, whatever, sure, fine, all good. Your tech stocks probably going down massively. And look, here's a final closing thought for you. You need to take your profits or the market will take them for you. And you have to remember that you cannot compound wealth from cycle to cycle and buy those bear market fire sales if you never take profits. You've got to, especially with your altcoins. Okay, again, Bitcoin, you hold cycle to cycle, whatever, you'll be fine. Especially with those altcoins, you got to get the heck out, man. You got to run for the hills when the time comes. Okay? Put it all in cash. Wait when the bear market really heats up and everybody's losing their minds and is, talking about the end of times on your timeline. Probably a good time to buy back in. And then you can 10x your money again in the next cycle. But if you don't sell, you can't do that. Thanks for watching.